tourist in a swimsuit crossed the line, literally, mocking a Royal Guardsman with an unsolicited massage. Her arrogance met a shocking response that left the crowd stunned. What happened next taught her a lesson she'd never forget. The summer sun bathed Buckingham Palace in golden light, casting a regal glow over the iconic red-coated guards. The rhythmic clop of horses' hooves filled the courtyard, mingling with the constant clicking of cameras and the hum of tourists chattering in countless accents. It was the kind of day that felt like a postcard brought to life, until one tourist decided to rewrite the scene with her own peculiar flair. Standing among the stoic ranks of the Royal Guard was Corporal James Preston, his statuesque frame unmoving beneath the weight of tradition and a heavy bearskin hat. A man of unshakable discipline, his sharp blue eyes scanned the milling crowd with a quiet authority. He was the embodiment of decorum, a sentinel of history, and, unfortunately, the prime target for today's chaos. Enter Karen, a brash American tourist whose neon green swimsuit clashed violently with the elegant backdrop of British tradition. Draped in audacious confidence, her oversized sunglasses perched on her nose like a shield against humility, Karen loudly lamented her disappointment. "Is this all they do? Stand around like statues. Where's the show?" she scoffed, her voice cutting through the respectful murmurs of the crowd. Oh, but Karen wasn't just here to spectate. No, she had a mission. Pointing a manicured finger at Corporal Preston, she turned to her entourage with a grin that reeked of mischief. "Watch this. I'll get him to react. Bet he's not as stiff as he looks." For a moment, the crowd collectively held its breath as she strutted past the white boundary line. Yes, that line, the one every decent person understands you don't cross. But Karen, fueled by a potent cocktail of entitlement and audacity, seemed to believe her tourist status granted her immunity. Approaching Preston, she waved a selfie stick dangerously close to his face, giggling like a schoolgirl at her own antics. "Come on, big guy, smile for the camera," she cooed mockingly. The guard didn't flinch. His expression was as unyielding as the granite beneath his boots. Frustrated but undeterred, Karen took things further. With an exaggerated flourish, she reached out and laid her hands on his shoulders, kneading them as though he were a masseuse's table. The crowd gasped, some whispering in disbelief, others raising their phones to capture what could only end in disaster. "Unbelievable," someone muttered. "Does she think this is a theme park?" Karen, of course, was oblivious. Her laughter rang out like nails on a chalkboard, each note amplifying the tension. Yet Corporal Preston stood firm, his discipline unbroken, though his jaw visibly tightened. You could almost hear the collective thought running through the crowd. She's gone too far. And then it happened. With a sudden, booming voice that sliced through the chaos, Preston barked, "Step back!" The command was as sharp as the crack of a whip. Karen stumbled, wide-eyed and startled, knocking into another tourist and spilling his drink. A wave of nervous laughter rippled through the crowd, but the mood had shifted. The once festive air was now thick with judgment, directed squarely at Karen. "Serves her right," someone whispered. "Maybe she'll finally learn some respect," another chimed in, their phone still recording. Karen, flustered but unwilling to admit defeat, glared at Preston as though he were the one in the wrong. But the guard had already returned to his post, his focus unwavering, as if nothing had happened. Yet, beneath his stillness, the tension lingered, a silent warning to anyone else tempted to cross the line. It was a moment that spoke volumes, a clash of respect and recklessness, tradition and entitlement. And for Karen, it was a lesson she wouldn't soon forget, or at least one the internet wouldn't let her. Karen strutted forward, her flip-flops smacking the cobblestones with the kind of determination usually reserved for war generals. Each step seemed to scream, "I'm the main character here." Ignoring the glaring, white boundary line that served as a universal "do not cross" sign, she closed in on Corporal James Preston, her target for the day. The crowd fell quieter, sensing trouble, or maybe just a great TikTok moment. With a selfie stick in hand, Karen leaned uncomfortably close, her oversized sunglasses reflecting the impassive face of the guardsman. "Smile, big guy. You're not that uptight, are you?" she quipped, her American drawl cutting through the humid morning air. A few tourists snickered nervously, unsure whether to laugh or cringe. Karen wasn't done. She began making faces at James, sticking out her tongue and blowing kisses like a performer in a low-budget comedy. "Is this what you call British tradition? You guys are more wooden than my uncle's porch swing," she added, earning scattered chuckles from her entourage. Seriously, you think? Does she not realize she's embarrassing herself, not him? But Karen wasn't just here to entertain. She wanted results. "Bet he's just dying to laugh under that fuzzy hat," she said, as though addressing the crowd. Then came the first touch, a pat on James's shoulder. A collective gasp rippled through the onlookers. James didn't flinch. His discipline was granite solid, but his jaw tightened ever so slightly, a warning missed entirely by Karen. "Oh, come on," she huffed, rolling her eyes. "Let's loosen you up." And then she crossed the line, literally and figuratively. Karen planted her hands on his shoulders, mimicking a masseuse at a day spa. "There, doesn't that feel better?" For a split second, the scene froze. James unmoving, Karen grinning like a Cheshire cat, and the crowd holding its collective breath. Then James's voice cut through the courtyard like thunder. "Step back!" The command was so sharp, so sudden, Karen stumbled back as though pushed by an invisible force, her flip-flops squeaking against the cobblestones. She collided with an unsuspecting bystander, sending his iced coffee cascading onto the pavement, and partially onto herself. The crowd erupted, but not with laughter. Some clapped, others cheered quietly, and a few murmured approvingly. "Finally, someone put her in her place," one voice whispered. Karen stood there drenched and flustered, her bravado crumbling. She glared at James, but he was already back in position, a picture of unshakable dignity. If his unspoken message wasn't clear, the murmuring crowd made it painfully obvious. The guard isn't here for your entertainment, and Karen? Well, she became just another lesson in why you don't mess with the Royal Guard, or tradition itself. Rather than being chastened, Karen doubles down. "It's just a joke," she exclaims, laughing nervously. Spotting a mounted guard nearby, she decides to shift her antics. She approaches the horse, ignoring the warning signs about staying back. Her attempts to pet the animal are met with a sharp stomp from the horse and a warning snort. James, still watching from his post, alerts a fellow guardsman. Together, they swiftly intervene before Karen can escalate further, firmly guiding her away from the animal. At this moment, a young boy in the crowd trips and falls. James instinctively moves to help, breaking protocol to lift the boy and calm his frightened tears. The crowd erupts in applause for his humanity, shifting focus away from Karen's foolishness. As Karen attempts to slink away from the scene, several tourists approach her, reprimanding her disrespectful behavior. One bystander uploads a video of her antics online, and by the next day, Karen's actions are trending with captions like "tourist karma" and "don't mess with the Royal Guard." The comment section tears into her, calling for respect toward cultural traditions. Meanwhile, James resumes his duty, unfazed by the morning's events. As he adjusts his hat and returns to his post, a young woman in the crowd, inspired by his act of kindness, approaches to offer a genuine thank you. James gives her a subtle nod, his only acknowledgement before returning to stoic silence. The story ends with the Royal Guards maintaining their dignified presence. a living embodiment of tradition and discipline, while Karen faces a social media storm that forces her to reflect on her actions.